Imagine burning a small fortune in cash every single day just to ensure your dinner guests never see a single speck of dirt on a servant's kitchen apron.
Right.
Or, tracking the exact lifespan of a wooden pitchfork so your staff can't sell the replacements on the black market.
It's wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by managing your own household, paying the electric bill, figuring out groceries, getting the car's oil changed, prepare for a serious perspective shift today.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in 1700s Paris, projecting power wasn't just about, like, having a lot of money. It was about orchestrating this terrifyingly precise, massive domestic machine.
Yeah, it really puts our modern complaints about keeping a house running into sharp relief, I think. We are looking at an entirely different stratosphere of management here. It's
Yeah.
not just wealth, it's the weaponization of bureaucracy.
Exactly. And that brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are jumping into a really fascinating manual from the year 1700.
Such a great source. It's called La Maison Reglée, which roughly translates to the well-ordered house. And it was written by a man named Audiger.
Right.
We're going to focus specifically on the first 3 chapters of Book 1. We really want to unpack the rigid organizational structure, the massive scale, and honestly, the jaw-dropping daily logistics of running a high-society French household at the turn of the 18th century.
And we need to set the historical stage right away for you listening, because this text, it isn't just a quaint history book.
No, not at all.
It isn't like a collection of old recipes either. It
Yeah.
is, for all intents and purposes, a highly detailed corporate management textbook
Yeah.
written specifically for the French nobility.
Yeah.
I mean, Audiger was basically laying out a blueprint for a microeconomy.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand the scale of this operation, you have to look at the sheer volume of humanity required just to form the baseline of a noble house.
The baseline, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the roster. Audiger explicitly lays out for what he calls a grand seigneur, a great lord.
Mm,
And we aren't talking about, a maid and a butler here.
not even close.
We are talking about 36 people, 36 employees under one single roof.
And we must remember that is just the core operational staff.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't include the Lord himself, his wife, their children, or the constant revolving door of extended family and guests.
Wow.
It's 36 people just to keep the wheels turning.
I want to read some of these titles from your notes because it doesn't sound like a home. It sounds like a modern corporate org chart.
It really does.
You've got the intendant, which is essentially your chief operating officer.
Right.
You have an almoner for religious duties, a secretary, a squire who handles the stables and the external logistics. You've got a concierge, a maître d'hôtel, acting as, like, your general manager of the inside. And then the kitchen brigade, a head cook, an officer of the pantry, various kitchen boys. Then there's the front of house staff pages, up to 6 footmen, 2 coachmen, postilions, grooms, and a literal Swiss guard at the front door.
It's a small army.
Why on earth did one family need so many highly specific roles?
Well, what's fascinating here is the social requirement of hyper-specialization.
Okay.
In a modern household, you do everything yourself. Even in a wealthy modern home with staff, roles are usually pretty fluid.
Sure, yeah.
But in 1700s aristocratic France, the division of labor was a status symbol in itself.
Oh, interesting.
The person who opens the heavy front door absolutely does not polish the silver.
Right.
The person who drives the carriage cannot be seen pitching hay to the horses. Every single task is perfectly compartmentalized because having the wealth to employ someone for one highly specific task, that proved your standing in society.
The craziest part of this corporate structure to me isn't just the sheer number of people. It's that the top brass had their own staff.
Oh.
Like, Audiger notes that the intendant, the almoner, the secretary, the squire, and the maître d'hôtel, they each had their own personal valet.
Yeah, they did.
The employees literally had employees.
It's a fully nested hierarchy. And it actually makes perfect sense when you understand the sociology of the era.
How so?
Well, if you are the intendant, you are likely a gentleman of some status yourself, right? You are managing massive estates, collecting rents, handling legal disputes.
Okay, yeah.
You cannot be expected to dress yourself or manage your own personal laundry while you're also managing the Lord's multi-million-dollar estate.
That's a good point.
So the Lord pays for your servant, too. It's the 18th century equivalent of giving a C-suite executive a dedicated administrative assistant and an expense account.
That is wild. But it brings me to a very practical, almost terrifying question.
Let's hear it.
If you have 36 staff members working in this house, plus the executive assistants, plus the Lord's actual family, how do they manage the sheer logistics of feeding this small army every single day? I mean, just the grocery runs alone.
Right, and this is where Ottiger's text shifts from a roster to an absolute masterclass in accounting.
Yeah.
You might imagine like a great medieval feasting hall where everyone just eats from the same roasted pig. But this is the year 1700. It is an era of strict, unforgiving mathematics.
Oh, man.
The economics of sustenance were calculated down to the exact sou.
Ooh, we should probably give some context there for you listening. How much is a sou exactly? What's the
Okay.
currency baseline we're working with here?
Great point. So in France at this time, the primary currency was the livre, and there were 20 sous in one livre.
Okay, 20 sous to a livre.
To put it in perspective, a highly skilled laborer in Paris, like, say, a master carpenter, might earn around 300 to 400 livres in an entire year of back-breaking work.
Wow.
So keep that baseline in mind as we talk about these daily household expenses.
A skilled worker makes 300 to 400 livres a year. Got it. So back to the staff food. I have to imagine food is the biggest operational expense.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Ottiger breaks it down by creating a rigid hierarchy of diet. Let's look at the absolute fundamental calorie of the era, which is bread.
Bread, of course.
Every single person on that 36-person roster, regardless of rank, received an allowance of 3 sous a day strictly for bread.
And 3 sous gets you what in 1700?
Roughly 1.5 pounds of bread per person per day.
Okay.
Plus, they budgeted extra for the coarser bread that was specifically used to thicken soups in the kitchen. So just to keep the staff functioning on baseline carbohydrates, it cost the household 5 livres and 8 sous every single day.
Man, so in a couple of months, you've already spent a master carpenter's entire yearly salary just on staff bread.
Exactly. But where the hierarchy really shows itself is in the liquid calories, the wine allowance.
Oh, yeah.
Your rank in the household literally dictated what and how much you were allowed to drink.
I love this detail from the source. The upper management, the top officers, obviously get a larger, better allocation. But the coachmen are lumped in with the executives.
Yes, they really are.
Which is so funny to me.
The top tier received 3 chopines of wine a day, which was valued at 5 sous. But the lower domestics, the footmen, the kitchen maids, they only received 1 pint valued at 5 sous.
Wait, I have to jump in here. The guy driving the horses gets the premium executive wine package.
He absolutely does. And think about the physical and social reality of his job.
Okay.
Driving a carriage with a team of highly strung horses through the chaotic, muddy, incredibly dangerous streets of 1700s Paris, that was physically demanding.
True.
But more importantly, the coachman was visible to the public. He was the literal face of the household on the street.
Ah, I see.
If your coachman looks sickly, thin, or poorly kept, the entire city thinks the Lord is going bankrupt. He had to be robust, so he got the good wine.
That actually makes a lot of sense. You're investing in the public relations aspect of your staff.
Exactly.
But the accounting gets even more intense when it comes to the main courses, right?
Yeah.
The meat. Because this is a Catholic country.
Very much so.
The calendar is strictly divided by the church into meat days and lean days, or jours maigres, where eating meat is forbidden. You have to eat fish or vegetables.
Which presents a massive logistical nightmare for the intendant.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this. This doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Fresh fish transported all the way inland to Paris in the 1700s must have been incredibly expensive, or at least highly variable in price depending on the catch and the weather, especially compared to just buying local beef.
Oh, absolutely.
How does an accountant perfectly balance a Tuesday meat budget against a Friday fish budget?
It's a brilliant catch, and it's where Ottiger's genius really shines. You're entirely right. Fish prices fluctuated wildly, and transport was a nightmare.
Right.
But Ottiger presents a brilliant piece of 1700s budgeting. He states that the lean days cost the exact same to the household as the meat days.
Wait, how is that possible?
Because Ottiger didn't manage the ingredients, he managed the cash flow. The daily meat budget was a fixed amount of cash. On a lean day, whatever money was normally allocated to the butcher was simply handed over to the fishmonger and the vegetable seller.
Away.
Yeah. If fish was expensive that week, the staff just got less fish, or maybe more cabbage. The budget was fixed. Only the menu absorbed the market shock.
Wow.
It's a perfect zero-sum game that protects the Lord's treasury.
That is ruthless, but incredibly smart. You insulate the household budget from inflation by making the staff's portion sizes take the hit.
Exactly.
So when you add up the 1.5 pounds of bread per person, the allocated wine based on rank, the fixed meat and fish budgets, what is the final annual bill for keeping this 36-person corporate machine fueled.
For the staff alone, just the back-of-house sustenance, you are looking at 9,506 livres a year.
9,536 livres,
Yeah.
just to keep the staff fed and watered so they have the energy to do their actual jobs.
Yes.
Which brings us to the actual job.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen how much it costs to run the back of house,
Mm-hmm.
but what happens when we move to the front of house?
The shop.
Yeah, the entire reason these 36 people are employed is to project power. And nowhere was that power more visible than at the Lord's dinner table.
Yeah.
Because if it took nearly 10,000 livres to feed the staff, what on earth did it take to feed the boss?
Well, we have to understand that the boss isn't just eating. The boss is performing a highly choreographed ritual of dominance.
Oettinger outlines the orchestration of a standard 12-person dinner. This happens twice a day, morning and evening.
Right.
And it wasn't just, hey, everyone sit down, the footman will bring out your plate. It was divided into these incredibly strict stages or services.
The term for this is service à la française, and the mechanism behind it is entirely about psychological overwhelm.
I was reading the breakdown, and the sheer volume of food is staggering.
Oh, it's massive.
For a 12-person table, Oettinger mandates that the first service must include a massive, large soup centerpiece. Then surrounding it, 4 smaller dishes and 2 hors d'oeuvres, just to start.
And the key here is how it is presented. All of this food is placed on the table at once in a specific, perfect geometric pattern before the guests even walk into the room.
Wow.
When the doors open, the visual impact of seeing that mountain of food perfectly balanced in silver dishes, it's crucial. It basically says to the guests, I have the wealth to conquer nature and geography.
So it's less like a modern restaurant where courses come out sequentially, and more like changing the sets in a theater between acts.
Precisely. You sit, you eat what is immediately in front of you. You don't pass dishes around like a family dinner.
Oh, interesting.
Then the metaphorical curtain drops. The entire table is wiped completely clean by the footmen, and an entirely new, perfectly symmetrical stage is set for the second service.
And the second service is the heavy artillery, a large roast dish, 2 distinct salads, and 2 entremets, which were like elaborate side dishes, sometimes sweet, sometimes savory.
Yeah.
And again, you aren't expected to eat everything.
You couldn't possibly. It's about demonstrating that the Lord has the resources to provide an overwhelming abundance of choice. To waste food was a sign of immense wealth.
Man. And finally, the sets change again for the third service. A large dish of fruit and 4 compotes. And again, they do this twice a day.
Twice a day.
The food sounds lavish, absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's not the partridge or the out-of-season fruit that caught my eye in this manual.
What was it?
It's the hidden operational costs, the incredibly mundane stuff that Oettinger itemizes just to make this theatrical production possible.
Ah, yes. This is the invisible infrastructure of luxury. The things the guests never think about, but the intendant loses sleep over.
Exactly. Oettinger budgets exactly 30 sous a day just for firewood. Specifically, faggots and coteres, bundles of kindling and splitwood, just to keep the Lord's chambers and the dining anteroom warm.
Yeah.
30 sous a day, just watching money literally go up in smoke so the guests don't shiver while they eat their fruit compote.
Which is a massive amount of cash when you remember that a footman's entire daily wine allowance was 4 sous.
Right.
They are burning a week's worth of a servant's wine budget every few hours just for ambiance.
It's insane. And then there's the laundry. Oh, the laundry. He budgets 15 sous a day to launder the household's tablecloths, the massive napkins, the kitchen aprons, the dish towels.
Such a specific line item.
But Oettinger makes a very specific, almost funny point here. He says this 15 sous budget expressly excludes the Lord's personal body linen. No underwear on this budget line.
It seems like a funny, quirky detail, but it actually speaks to the strict, rigid categorization of the era's bureaucracy.
How so?
Well, the Lord's physical body, his shirts, his undergarments, that is the domain of the valet de chambre. That is classified as an intimate, personal expense.
Okay.
But the tablecloths, the pristine white aprons of the footmen serving the soup, those are stage props.
I see.
That is an operational business expense for the front of house. You do not mix the personal budget with the corporate budget.
It's literally line item accounting in the 18th century. So when you total up the meat, the out-of-season fruit, the perfectly laundered stage props, the blazing fires, what is the annual budget just for the Lord's table?
Over 11,880 livres annually.
So the Lord's table for 12 people costs roughly 2,000 livres more per year than feeding the entire 36-person staff.
Because, as we established, a noble's table wasn't just about appetite, it was diplomatic capital.
Right.
When a rival noble or a royal minister sat at that table, they weren't just tasting the roast, they were consuming the lord's status.
Wow.
They were calculating the 15 sous of laundry, the 30 sous of firewood, the perfectly synchronized footmen changing the theatrical sets. Bureaucracy and administration became a form of social dominance. If you could manage this chaos flawlessly, you were powerful.
It's like a high-stakes boardroom lunch, but with way more steps and significantly more compote. Okay, so we've seen how much it costs to project power inside the home. We've fueled the staff, we've funded the theater or the dining room, but in 1700s Paris, a noble's reputation was often made on the streets, right?
Very much so.
How did they project that same power when they left the front door?
Oh, well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the mobility of the nobility was arguably their most public flex of wealth, which takes us out of the dining room, out of the house entirely, and into the stables. Chapter 3 of Audiger's manual.
And again, the scale is what gets me. A grand seigneur couldn't just have 1 or 2 horses to pop down to the market or visit a friend.
No.
Audiger mandates a minimum of 14 carriage horses. That's enough to run 2 separate massive carriage teams.
Right.
Plus 16 saddle horses for the lord and his retinue to ride. That is 30 horses total.
30 massive, hungry, incredibly high-maintenance animals.
Yeah.
Keeping 30 horses in a dense urban environment like Paris, or even out at a country estate, is an absolute logistical nightmare. You aren't just a homeowner anymore. You are essentially running a high-end transportation depot.
I was immediately comparing it in my head to a modern company running a corporate vehicle fleet.
That's a great analogy.
You don't just buy a dozen delivery trucks and call it a day, you know?
Yeah.
You have to pay for the diesel, the mechanics, the parking depot, the insurance.
Yeah.
Audiger breaks down the daily accounting required to keep this 18th century luxury fleet running, and the granularity is just stunning.
Let's look at the mechanism of that daily cost for a single carriage horse. Because Audiger doesn't just guess, he gives us the exact daily formula to keep one horse functional.
He budgets strictly 22 sous a day per carriage horse, and he breaks it down to the penny.
He really does.
8 sous buys you 2 bundles of hay. Another 8 sous buys a bushel of oats. You need fresh straw for their bedding to keep them clean and comfortable. That's 2 sous.
Yeah.
Then you have to pay the farrier to maintain their iron shoes. Another 2 sous. And finally, 2 sous a day allocated to the saddler for the constant upkeep of the leather harnesses intact.
And that is 22 sous times 14 carriage horses every single day.
Wow.
Plus the slightly different budgets for the 16 saddle horses, it is a constant, unrelenting burn rate of cash. Because unlike a modern delivery truck, you cannot just turn a horse off on a Sunday.
No, you can't.
Horses do not take days off from eating.
No, they don't. And they produce, well, 30 horses produce an astronomical amount of biological waste, which requires constant, grueling cleaning.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings me to what is genuinely my favorite accounting detail in the entire book. Audiger budgets exactly 10 sous a day for what a modern mechanic could call shop supplies.
Ah, yes, the stable utility items. This raises an important question. Why on earth would a multimillionaire lord demand his intendant track the budget for brooms?
Yes, 10 sous a day, every single day, specifically allocated for wooden buckets, brooms, iron pitchforks, wooden pitchforks, curry combs, scissors, sponges, and lanterns. Like, why micromanage to that level?
2 reasons, amortization and embezzlement.
Embezzlement.
Yeah, Audiger had lived this reality. He knew exactly how fast a wooden broom wears out when you're sweeping up after 30 horses. By allocating exactly 10 sous a day, he is amortizing the cost of wear and tear.
Okay, that makes sense.
But more importantly, in a massive household, if you just give the squire an open tab for stable supplies, you will suddenly find yourself buying 50 expensive iron pitchforks a month.
Because the staff is stealing them and selling them on the black market.
Exactly. The 10 sous budget acts as an administrative fence. It prevents the staff from bleeding the lord dry through 1,000 tiny cuts.
That is brilliant.
Everything is connected. If you don't budget strictly for the brooms, the stable gets filthy, the horses get a hoof infection, the carriage doesn't run, and the lord looks weak and impoverished when he has to hire a public coach to get to the royal court.
The bureaucracy protects the status. He even includes 20 sous a day, specifically to pay the wheelwright to maintain the physical carriages themselves, both the heavy town carriage and the lighter country carriage.
Because wooden wheels on uneven cobblestone streets require constant daily repair. If a single spoke breaks and isn't caught, The vehicle is grounded, and the Lord's mobility vanishes.
It's exact preventative fleet maintenance. It's exactly like setting aside money for tire rotations and oil changes, but with wood and iron. So what is the annual cost of keeping this depot of 30 horses fed, shod, and ready to roll?
The stables, the horses, and the carriage maintenance come to roughly 10,585 livres a year.
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean? Let's take a step back and look at the whole picture. If we add up just the 3 chapters we've covered today,
Let's do the math.
you have roughly 9,500 livres to feed the 36 staff members. You have almost 11,900 livres to put on the daily theatrical production of the Lord's Dinner Tale. And you have roughly 10,500 livres to keep the 30 horses and the carriages running. We are looking at over 30,000 livres annually.
And remember our baseline from earlier. A skilled master craftsman made perhaps 300 livres in a year.
Right.
This noble household is burning through 100 lifetimes of a laborer's wages every single year. And here is the kicker. We haven't even paid the 36 staff their actual wages yet.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
We haven't bought the Lord's clothes. We haven't maintained the physical chateau. We haven't paid the taxes. This 30,000 livres is strictly the burn rate for calories, human and equine, and the basic operational friction of existing.
Just to keep the absolute baseline machinery humming.
Exactly. And I think the major takeaway here, the brilliant historical context that Auditors Manual provides, is that it completely shatters the modern stereotype we have of the nobility.
Right, the idea of idle luxury. Just, lounging on a chaise, eating peeled grapes while someone fans you.
It wasn't idle at all.
Yeah.
To be a noble at this level, or to be the intendant running the house for the noble, was to be the CEO of a massive, heavily regulated economic ecosystem.
Yeah.
Every single bundle of hay, every pint of wine, every log thrown on the fire, every wooden pitchfork had to be tracked, budgeted, and aggressively managed.
It's staggering.
The real aha moment in Auditor's Manual is that in 18th century France, bureaucracy was a form of wealth. It required immense, unforgiving administrative discipline to project that image of effortless grace to the outside world.
Effortless grace takes a ton of ledgers.
Yeah.
So you, the listener, the next time you feel completely overwhelmed by paying your water bill or figuring out who is taking the car to the shop or meal prepping for the week, just remember, you don't have to budget for 30 horses, a 36-person staff, and 15 sous of daily napkin laundry just to prove your worth to your neighbors.
It really does make a trip to the modern grocery store seem a bit more manageable by comparison.
It absolutely does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the meticulously ordered, terrifyingly expensive world of 1700s France. But before we go, I want to leave you with a lingering question to ponder on your own. We've just spent this time exploring the perfectly balanced, incredibly rigid budget of a noble household running exactly as it should. A beautiful humming machine of 36 humans, 30 horses, and perfectly timed theatrical dinner sets.
A well-ordered house.
But in a system this tightly wound, this utterly reliant on perfect daily execution and a constant stream of cash. What happened to a noble family when just one critical gear in this massive machine broke down? Or, even more terrifying for the intendant holding that ledger, what happened to all those people and all those horses when the money to fuel this machine finally dried up?
A fragile ecosystem indeed. The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall.
Something to think about next time you're checking your own budget app. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.